Hello, my name is Tomasio, and I'm here to talk about the Beatles and the untold story that I'm sure many of you are going to find fascinating beyond belief. So, I guess it's important that everyone understands that the Beatles are literally credited with helping significantly bring down communism in Russia. And this is verified by all the former communists included, So everything that we're going to talk about with the Beatles is really from an appreciation and a gratitude for what they were able to accomplish in those 10 years. And it was a battle like you can't believe. The spiritual battle was unbelievable. And it's not necessarily over yet because Paul's still alive, Ringo's still alive. And so the story's not completely over, folks. But one of the most important things that everybody has got to be on the same page about is the fact that at the end of the 10-year run of the Beatles, which basically 1960 to 1970, there was bitterness, and there was clearly "Let It Be" was the beast, that really caused tremendous division amongst the Beatles. So, obviously they had been touring together for many, many years, and they were staying in hotels together. They've been through so much together. So how could something so beautiful end so tragic? And nobody could really wanted to even think about it. You got other bands like the Rolling Stones that are still playing together, and Yes, and um, you know, even Bad Company. There's groups that have stayed together for years, but the Beatles couldn't do it. And it's important that we don't uh, try to say that's good or bad. It just is. This is the way it unfolded, folks. So let's look at how it unfolded. Whether instead of saying it's good, bad, this is how it went down. Um, and I think it's important, honestly, to start with "Let It Be," only because that's where things went wrong. The movie's coming out called Get Back, and I think it's important that everyone understands that John Lennon and Paul McCartney were great friends, and then they ended up being enemies. And it got so bad that John wrote a song, "How Do You Sleep at Night?" Directed to Paul, because he called Paul out on "Let It Be," specifically that song, and accused Paul of basically turning religious on the group. Now, people have to understand, Paul him and George Harrison went to the same Catholic school. His mother, Mary, from Ireland, McCartney. So anyway, yeah, Paul knew who the Blessed Mother was. There's no question about it. And so when he lays out, "Let it be, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be," that's a direct quote from the Gospel of Luke, where the angel came to Mary and said to her, "God has chosen you." And she said, "Let it be." That's what Mary said. That was her response. So Paul took that. If he didn't consciously take it, it doesn't matter. The Bible was written before "Let It Be" was written. But what happened was John objected to the song as being not a Beatles song. It wasn't in the spirit of the Beatles to be religious, and I get that. Um, so they're John Lennon's talking about apparitions of Mary as religious in some way. I would say it's more spiritual. So this is where John's judgment was skewed. Why was John so skewed against the Blessed Mother? Interesting. Very interesting. And it put Paul in a very awkward position. So, you know, John was raised Protestant, obviously. And so a Blessed Mother type song would have caused some reaction to a young Protestant raised young man. And that's, speculation on my part. But the point is, in retrospect, who in their right mind would ever want to discourage a song like Let It Be? That's been such a powerful, inspirational song. But it did cause tremendous. So John objected to Let It Be. Let it be known. John Lennon objected to Let It Be on religious grounds. Okay? Paul caved in and said it was about his mother. He said he had a dream about his mother. To this very day, that's what Paul says. I had a dream about my mom, and she came to me in the dream, and she said, let it be, Paul, let it be. It's the most lamest I've ever heard. Anything I've ever heard so lame in all my life. An educated man like Paul McCartney, to just think that the whole world is a bunch of bleeding idiots, and that the Catholics are completely unaware that he took that right from the Holy Bible. And then he denies it has anything to do with the Virgin Mary. This, in religious circles, is very serious. It's a very serious infraction. Okay, not to give credit where credit is due. So, I would definitely say that John was clearly biased against the Virgin Mary and the Catholic Church, of course, but that's understandable. Now, not really against the Virgin Mary, but understandable against organized religion. Those guys were just a little bit frustrated with it, and I get that completely. But anyway, let's just stick with the facts. So John objects to Let It Be. Paul has to say that it was his mother, and they were able to get Let It Be. Turns out to be a great song, but it breaks the band up to the point where John's writing songs like, how do you sleep at night, Paul? And so he felt betrayed. But they all did pull it together for Abbey Road one last time, and that was a peaceful reconciliation. That was needed, it was necessary, it was important. And I think we have layers here, So Paul compromised. In my opinion, he shouldn't have. In my opinion, he should come clean. John took a stand, and he was more questioning the motives of Paul McCartney. And then you had John then going, he wanted to do his religious thing. So he ends up writing Imagine, which of course wasn't religious, it was anti-religious, but it was religious, it was definitely religious. So it was anti-religion, organized religion. It wasn't an organized religion, it was a collective religious type of concept of everyone living in peace together, getting along, no possessions, this type of thing. Was clearly, a more of a religious idea for life. Even though there was no religion or heaven or hell, it was everyone living together in harmony while we're here on earth, which makes sense. But people took it the way they took it, whatever. But the point is, John wanted to write a religious song after Paul did, and then George did too. So then you got My Sweet Lord, Isn't It a Pity? John had some, peace, give peace a chance. These are sung at religious rallies, things of that nature. So they all, in Ringo, we haven't even talked about his spirituality, but at least right now, John Lennon was shot and killed on December 8th. And that was the year 1980, okay? December 8th is the feast of the Immaculate Conception of the Virgin Mary. He was killed on a holy day by a born-again Christian who was mentally ill. So, add all of that together. So John Lennon comes against the Virgin Mary and Let It Be. Big cover-up on that. That is the truth. And then eventually dies on the Feast of the Virgin Mary, Immaculate Conception, on December 8th, 1980, which was Ronald Reagan. So, folks, if you don't see there's something very, very significant going on here with John Lennon, Paul McCartney, John Paul, and the fall of communism in Russia and the connection to the Virgin Mary and John Paul II. Stay tuned, my friends. We got some interesting things to talk about.